Peyton Alfred Brown. My great-great-grandfather was born at Millview in Cumberland County, Virginia, May 8, 1836. This year was filled with many events. The Alamos fell at San Antonio, Texas was founded, Martin Van Buren was elected to the presidency, missionary Marcus Whitman took his wife Narcissa and Elizabeth Spalding to Oregon, the Colt six-shooter was patented, the University of Wisconsin was founded at Madison, the Arch de Triomphe was completed in Paris, and 75% of the gainfully employed Americans were engaged in agriculture. Peyton's father was impressed with the need for education, and it is probable that Peyton started school in Fairville area in 1842. The fact that Peyton's father was a Methodist minister and owned a library also surely had a very positive influence upon Peyton. He should have learned much about the handling of slaves because he lived through the very heated period of their emancipation. In 1849, after two brothers and two sisters had died, he and his family were once again in Virginia. Although Peyton was familiar with death, having recently lost an infant sister at 18 days, he was probably not prepared at 18 for the death of his young 42-year-old father. A month later, Peyton enrolled in Randolph-Bacon. It may have been determined before his father's death. Peyton may have only attended for 1 year. Peyton married Sarah Margaret Hatcher the 21st of September, 1858. This year was the year Henry W. Longfellow wrote The Courtship of Miles Standish. The can-can was first danced. The mason jar was patented, and the mint julep was invented. In May of 1861, Peyton joined the Confederate Army. Although he had been asked to enter the war as an officer, he declined and entered as a private. He was a member of the Cumberland troops, which had been organized in 1812. He served under the following generals at some time during his war career: Stuart, Fitzhugh and Magruder. During the war, Peyton was laid up with typhoid fever. He came home in a buggy and was so weak he could hardly walk from the gate to the house. Peyton told this story to his daughter-in-law, Ada Turner Brown. The South was camped along the Robertson River opposite the Federals. General Stuart came and told me he wanted me to go to Culpeper Courthouse to learn what I could. Well, I told the general that there was one fjord I knew I could cross, and so I and a friend went. We crossed the river and had to go across farmlands as the roads were all picketed. A good deal of information was obtained. We intended to get back to the fjord by sunrise. When about halfway back, the sun rose. Seeing a house about a half a mile off, I suggested to my friend that we go down and get breakfast. We hailed the house, and the lady came to the door. Seeing the Confederate uniforms, she exclaimed, "Boys, what are you doing here? The Yanks are here 15 to 20 times a day." I said, "Well, if you could give us breakfast, we'll take our chance on eating." We then tied up the horses in the persimmon grove. Getting back to the house, we were told breakfast was ready. A 14-year-old Negro boy was standing in the yard. He was called to the porch and told to stand guard on penalty of having his ears cut off if he did not report any impending danger. Well, when the meal was about half over, the Negro boy came to the door and said, "They come!" We excused ourselves and rushed out the back door, thus avoiding 20 Federal cavalrymen who were headed that way. The cavalrymen saw the two of us and gave a yell. As the roads were picketed, they had to go through the fields. Well, the Federals were gaining on us. We kept out of shooting range. We saw the pickets across the road. I pulled off my hat and yelled, "Come on, boys! Here they are!" You should have seen them run. We put our horses at a good pace and turned through the timber and went safely back to town. The Emancipation Proclamation became effective the 1st of 1863. That must have been a difficult period for Peyton. He had had a black servant with him through the war, and perhaps he acted as a messenger between Peyton and his family. Peyton's grandfather, Daniel Brown, passed away while Peyton was at the Battle of Fredericksburg. Daniel Brown left Peyton a wealthy man. He received 1/8 of $180,000. In 1865, Peyton walked from Appomattox to his uncle's home in Windsor, near Ballsville, Virginia, where he was reunited with his wife and boys. His slaves were gone and everything was lost. I don't know what happened to his inheritance from his grandfather Daniel. It's possible that the money was in Confederate funds and thus no good. It's also possible that the funds were tied up in lands in Virginia and Missouri. But Peyton let his ex-slaves know that they were free to accompany him and his family back to Fairville, Missouri. He promised them that as long as his family had food, they would have food.